So hi, this is Team Chester, and we are doing a Capsim overview of our this quarter's Capsim campaign. So here's a table of contents and of what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we will talk about the overall strategy that we went through, and the second is the goals and objectives that we are trying to achieve. The third and the fourth are the summary rounds, which includes summary from each round and some competitor information and some other information. And number five is the fifth we will go through is the assumptions and the risks. And finally, we will talk about our lessons learned from this quarter of Capsim campaign.
So for Capsim, our main strategy was to be a broadcast leader. And to be a broadcast leader, we had three focuses. So our three focus would be price, presence, and value. Throughout the PowerPoint, we're going to be talking about our goals and objectives. And our three objectives and goals would be price, which is having competitive pricing relative to the market, having a strong presence to establish a cost leadership positioning, and creating value by creating value per dollar than our competitors. So for our objective number one, we want to make a product that would cater to both sectors. So we're going to be providing logistics for week 1 and 4 to give a broad overview of our progress. If we look in R&D, we try to cater our products to our customers' preference with 6x4 as performance, 13.6 as size, reliability 21,000. And we slowly adjusted that to week 4 on the right side to 11.4, 8.7, and 18,000. What we did fail to do was we failed to look downstream for our marketing because we didn't create as much as a presence as much as we wanted to, as for production as well for automation. So objective number 2 will be modestly spent on promoting to improve awareness and accessibility. We failed to invest or integrate more marketing just because that for rounds 2 and 4, we were doing fairly well. We had positive sales profits, stock price, contribution margin, and zero emergency loan. Therefore, we decided not to change as much as we should have and just went with what we did.
So here is a summary for round 5 to 8. So our critical and pivotal moment is at round 5, which we were actually financially positive. However, we did not resolve our loans and deal with our goals properly. And now, starting from round 6, starts the challenge, which we were returning from a negative financial position. And because we are not able to cover starting from round 6, we eventually had to take out emergency loans, which results in a very low to no scores at all for most of our KPIs. And now the strongest competitor for low tech is Aries, and as they actually best accomplished the customer profile for low tech, and they made most sales even by round 8 out of all of the teams for low tech.
Yeah, so referring back to our objectives, we actually kept our adjustments and changes fairly minor throughout the entire simulation because we assumed that the market would be really sensitive to big changes in our finances and marketing. So we thought by playing it safe, it would be best. So we wanted to keep our changes to a minimum. However, something that we failed to recognize is that in any change in our areas is okay as long as we had the proper forecasting, which we failed to capture. So we initially decided on a broad cost leader strategy because we saw that the low tech customer usually takes up more of the market consumer demographic than the high tech customer. Thus, we believe that if we capitalize on the low tech consumer with our product, we would make the most sales and increase our profit and market share. And so in order to address both of our objectives, 1 and 2, while on finances as well as marketing and presence, we wanted to meet the customer profile as much as possible. And so we believe that we needed to start off strong financially in order to make the adequate adjustments to marketing and finances. And so we decided to take out loans in our initial decisions, 1 and 2, in order to start off with strong cash flow to finance our ventures. Obviously, this came back to be our downfall eventually because we placed ourselves in a bad financial position because we had this expectation that we could make up for it later with sales and profit. And another risk that we took was our initial business strategy, which was the broad cost leadership. And while it wasn't initially a risk, we saw later how because the broad cost leader strategy requires eventual investments and automation and capacity in order to continue keeping the prices low, we needed taking upon this strategy was a risk in a sense because it required keeping in mind that we would eventually need to be in a good financial and forecasting position in order to make these investments in our technology sector. So outside of Capsim, we actually recall one of the case studies on the Mattel toy company, and in their case, they were in efforts to keep their prices low because of outsourcing, industry competition, and foreign policy. As a result, their subcontractors went to unethical and unsustainable manufacturing practices, which resulted in a huge recall and blow to Mattel's image. And we can actually learn from this case study because it shows us that proper forecasting and focus on cost is important because it still ties into the company's sourcing strategy, especially in regards to ethical and sustainable sourcing. And so while it doesn't necessarily directly relate to our Capsim project, we are still able to just recognize how cost is important and forecasting is also really important in terms of sourcing strategy. And so next slide. Finally, like the biggest thing that we just learned from this is that we failed to consider the fact that changes upstream creates system nervousness and therefore ripple effects on those downstream. And so while we were really focused on our initial rounds, we couldn't make up for it in the later rounds because of this huge ripple effect that would come from our initial decision. And so that showed us that our supply chain was not as linear and direct of a relationship, but rather an exponential relationship where our small decisions have a larger impact on our product. This actually works vice versa as well because lack of change in certain areas can also be magnified in insufficiencies elsewhere in the product. For example, we didn't believe in adhering strictly to the low tech profile, price profile at the time. And so we bordered on the upper limit of the price range in order to just meet the profile when we should have made the price lower and earlier. And by having our price end around $34.25, as you can see in the marketing slide, we believe that we suffered a lot in potential sales that we could have made if we just decided to commit to our initial low-tech customer profile in terms of price. And so that actually introduces the final lesson we learned, which is that near the end of the simulation, when customer profiles were starting to differentiate, we focused too much on the overall picture and trying to capture as much sales, when we should have instead just tried to capture and match our product with one of the customer profiles. And because we tried to do this without the proper forecasting or preparation, that's why we eventually hit hard in loss of sales, loss of profit, and market price. And so we believe that from the lesson here is that we should have committed to one profile and perhaps even developed another product like other companies did and to target a different customer profile. And so that's all of our presentation. And yeah, once again, thank you for listening.